Iran has condemned the latest US sanctions imposed over Friday's parliamentary election. Washington earlier blacklisted 5 members of Iran's Guardian Council, accusing them of unlawfully disqualifying candidates from the ballot. One of those officials gave his reaction, saying the restrictions have nothing to do with supporting democracy.
Even without boycotts and sanctions on members of the Guardian Council, the US regime has shown that it has nothing to do with democracy. Its ambition is to establish dictatorship and milk the region like a cow. We are now more determined to lend our votes to the people.
Polling stations across Iran closed a few hours ago, with more than 7,000 candidates vying for 290 seats in parliament. All candidates were vetted by the 12-member Guardian Council, which is responsible for interpreting the constitution and overseeing elections. It's the first nationwide ballot since the US sanctions against Iran were reinstated after Washington's pullout from the Iran nuclear deal. It comes at a challenging time for Iran, with the economy in recession and recent hostilities with the United States over the killing of General Soleimani. Well, many voters arrived at polling stations in face masks due to the coronavirus outbreak, which has spread to several Iranian cities. We can go live now to Soraya Sepahpour-Ulrich, independent researcher and writer. Soraya, thanks for joining us. Good to have you in the programme today. These sanctions, they only target, of course, 5 members of Iran's Guardian Council. What is the aim of these sanctions? They do appear to be largely symbolic here.
Well, there is an aim to it, but there are actually 80 million people in Iran who have been sanctioned. And the 5 members that Mr. Pompeo, America, sanctioned again are part of that 80 million people. So it really is ineffective in the sense that it's bizarre how many times you sanction a single person. But I think there's also a dark message in this. And I think that is to agitate Iranians inside Iran and polarize it. The United States wants to give the impression that it's on the side of the people who are more pro-West, and they're dubbed reformists, whereas a lot of the reformists in Iran are as much pro-independence as the rest of them. But there are some elements in Iran, and I can't even venture to give you a number, that do receive funds from the United States National Endowment for Democracy, CIA, and they're waiting for any excuse to start an agitation. So in spite of the high voter turnout in Iran, despite the United States and the sanctions, I think the Iranian government would do well to be on guard against people who would go out and protest and repeat the lines of Secretary of State CIA Director Pompeo. And I think that's really the message here. It's not is the sanctions are ineffective. I mean, if there's no food on your plate, there's no food on your plate. You can't take away what's not there. But what it is they're sending a direct message to the supporters or Panzu, whoever, whatever you want to call them, the people that are working with them in Iran. And although the people are very much aware of what America is doing, it only takes a few to spread the lies. There may be only a few who are receiving funding or support from the United States, but they can influence very many others, like they have done at every turn in the Iranian history. And we saw that happen in December. When I was there, I saw how a few people lied about the protests and things took off. So I think one should be on the lookout for that. But other than that, as you said, the lawmakers are making a mockery of this. And one of them, in fact, turned around and said, well, I guess I won't be spending Christmas in the United States. But they do need to look out for any unrest in Iran, which will be instigated by the United States as usual.
I mean, these elections, they are seen as a sort of litmus test for President Rouhani and his pro-reform moderate agenda. We're going to get a partial count coming up early on Saturday in the early hours. What's your prediction for the results?
Well, the people are very unhappy with Mr. Rouhani. I was in Iran, as I said, in December. I was there for a month. And even people who had voted for him, they're cursing him. They're very disappointed. They're very angry. And the economy, it's not just that the United States reimpose sanctions. They're disappointed in him because he hasn't been able to manage the economy. They're fed up with him. So I don't predict Mr. Rouhani or the people who support him winning in these elections, or anybody. In fact, I think the turnout for him is going to be so low, or for the moderate faction, as they're called here. I think people are fed up. They're fed up and they're angry. I think the more that you hear it on the streets of Tehran, I read the Farsi tweets, and I hear it from the people that I have contact with in Iran, that the more the United States pressures them, the more they're reacting in defiance. And I think America needs to understand the mentality of the Iranian people. They're not reflected in the people who come here for negotiations. The mentality of the Iranian people is not reflected in those who have a good relationship with the West. They're the vast minority of the people. I think they need to understand the ideology of the Iranians, the Iranian people, and maybe, only maybe then, they will give up the madness of thinking they can impose their will on Iran and Iranians.
What do you say to those who've condemned these elections as a farce? So, I mean, Western powers have said legitimate candidates have been excluded. Is there any truth to those allegations?
Look, there's no truth to them as far as I know. I mean, every candidate has to be vetted. They have to swear to uphold the constitution of the government. And they vet them for corruption. They vet them for their suitability. Unlike the United States, you don't buy your way into parliament with money. You don't buy a presidency, as Bloomberg wants to do. And you don't have your votes not counted like the supporters of Sanders, who are being marginalized. In Iran, it's actually a lot more democratic, if you will, than it is here. You have to uphold the rules. You have to be anti-corruption. And then the people go and decide. Nobody's ever 100% happy with any election result, and that's in any country. But I think that it's funny for the West to be pointing the finger at Iran, because that way they're actually pointing four fingers at themselves. Showing, because the world now has come to laugh at America, at the elections that they've been holding, the farce and the lies and the propaganda. I mean, already they're afraid of, their favorite candidate not winning, and it's definitely not Trump and it's not Sanders. So already they're starting the propaganda and the lies that they're interfering with the elections. On the opposite, they're undermining themselves. So how can we not expect them to undermine a country like Iran that's been the victim of their actions for over 40 years?
Right, we'll have to see what happens come Saturday morning and how that's going to impact relations with America and with Western powers as well. Soraya Sepahpour-Ulrich, independent researcher and writer, thanks for joining us on the programme. Good to have you on.
Thank you.